Mr. Harper from Mississippi. Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
There's no objection.
Mr. Speaker, as you may know, and many of you may know, my wife Sydney and I are blessed with a precious 20-year-old son named Livingston and a wonderful 18-year-old daughter named Maggie. Early in Livingston's life, we noticed that he was not reaching developmental milestones as quickly as the other children his age. He was slow to walk, slow to talk, and at times he would flap his hands, rock back and forth, and chew on a terry cloth doll that he had. Doctors continuously informed Sydney and me that he was developmentally delayed and that he would grow out of it. We were told not to be concerned. When Livingston was nearly 19 months old and we were 3 months pregnant with Maggie, our doctor informed us that something could be wrong. At that time, he didn't know what it was, but assured us that he would begin searching for what the diagnosis was. Over the next 2 years, our lives were consumed with occupational therapy and speech therapy and visits to the doctor, trying to find out what we had along with other diagnostic tests. Livingston was misdiagnosed with mild cerebral palsy and was said to be a near miss on autism. My strong and loving wife dealt with these issues on a daily basis and dealt with the brunt of the day-to-day activity with Livingston. After almost 2 years, we were finally able to get a correct diagnosis of Fragile X syndrome. Most Fragile X families have shared similar stories of delayed diagnosis. This is why I support the work of the Fragile X Clinical and Research Consortium. Fragile X associated disorders are genetic, resulting in behavioral, developmental, and language disabilities throughout a person's life. It is linked to a mutation on the X chromosome and is the most commonly inherited form of intellectual disabilities. Fragile X is also linked to reproductive problems in women, including early menopause and a Parkinson's-like condition in older male carriers. Today, over 100,000 Americans live with Fragile X syndrome, and over 1 million Americans carry a Fragile X mutation and either have or are at risk for developing a Fragile X-associated disorder. Further, as many as 1 in 130 women are estimated to be carriers of the Fragile X mutation, according to current studies. Today, over 140 Fragile X advocates visited Capitol Hill today, educating their members of Congress on the potential for effective treatments, raising awareness of this disorder, and sharing their very personal stories. As one of the co-chairmen of this bipartisan Fragile X caucus, I am committed to improving the health of children and adults across the country living with this disorder. Last year, our caucus, united with the National Fragile X Foundation, reached many of our targeted objectives. Working with Senator Thad Cochran of Mississippi and other members of Congress, we secured funding for a national post-secondary education demonstration program, which was authorized in the 2008 Higher Education Opportunities Act, but was previously not funded. This program will give hope to families and will allow young adults with intellectual disabilities to perhaps enjoy the opportunity and the experience of going to college. The Fragile X Caucus supported funding for the Center for Disease Control to establish public health activities for Fragile X syndrome, obtaining $1.9 million for the current fiscal year. Our coalition obtained report language in support of efforts at NIH for the implementation of their research plan on Fragile X. And we succeeded in adding Fragile X to the list of disorders eligible for medical research projects under the Department of Defense's peer-reviewed medical research program. These accomplishments have had a significant impact on the Fragile X community, but I assure you that this is only the beginning of our very promising journey. This year, the Fragile X Caucus will work with other members of Congress to push the NIH research plan on Fragile X syndrome and associated disorders, and will urge Congress to continue funding translational research that shows significant promise of a safe and effective treatment for this disorder. We will request that the Department of Defense expand the peer-reviewed medical research program to include Fragile X associated disorders in this eligible research topics for their fiscal year 2011. And we will advocate for continued support to grow the National Fragile X Public Health Initiative and the Fragile X Clinical and Research Consortium in order to expand to geographically underserved regions. I commend the ongoing research being conducted in drug therapy, and we hope that it will lead to successes. We must continue to focus on efforts to enhance the lives of these families who are blessed with a Fragile X child. As the only member of Congress who has a child with Fragile X syndrome, I understand the challenges that many families face who experience this condition. For our family, Fragile X has become a lifelong labor of love and daily blessings. Every day we thank God for our son Livingston, and our family's commitment to the courageous individuals is that we will work tirelessly to increase awareness of this genetic disorder. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.